Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Epokk, and in this video I want to talk about the Void in Forager. Now, Forager isn't that hard combat-wise, but the Void can actually be quite difficult if you want. So, let's talk about that. Now, completing the Void is very useful for multiple reasons. Now you get some feats there for level 5, 10, 20 and 30, I believe. Yeah, so 5 you get a panda, 10 you get a chicken, 20 a samurai, and 30 whatever that is. Now you can get into the Void as easily as just being able to create a Void Gate, which is something you can make at the Sigil Maker. Now I always have to look for that one. So the Sigil Maker actually gives you the ability to make a Void Portal, but that's quite expensive. It makes with electronics, fiberglass, and star fragments, which are pretty rare. Even when you can more easily get them through the skill tree. But honestly, you can just easily buy them from the vendor that only shows up at night. The extraordinary vendor, the special vendor, I don't know what its name is. But anyway, you can very easily buy them from him. Now, what is the Void? Now, the Void is actually just basically procedurally generated land where you can constantly find enemies. Now, you have about 2 minutes and a half to kill a certain number of enemies. Now, in this place, you can also find the Void Stones and other materials that, like Void Roses that you can't find in the normal world, except for in the exceptionary vendor. Now, each time you complete the level, you find yourself at a Void Gate. Now, this Void Gate will lead you to level 2, level 3, level 4, and so on until you can't make it any further. I believe the max level is level 1000, and honestly, I haven't found it just yet because I honestly found it a little bit boring, the grind. But we only need to get to level 30, and that's why I only will explain to you how you can get to level 30, but you can build further upon these tips just to get there. Now, very easily, the reasons that you also want to play the Void is except for just the combat experience and completing the game, getting the feats and stuff, is also every 5 levels you get a chest. And that chest has quite some interesting stuff like uranium and eternal diamonds and stuff like that you will need for cosmic steel. Now on the screen you can see all the bosses that you find and at which levels they will appear. Now these bosses are pretty difficult, well, later on. Now at first you can find the boss that you probably recognize from the ancient tomb, from the sand biome. Now this guy isn't that bad. He spawns a few of these pillars that give electricity and he will just teleport above you and attack you, but honestly he is not really difficult. Now the second one is from the winter biome, and this one will just constantly keep away from you and will try to freeze you, which basically just slows you down. Now it isn't that difficult of a boss to defeat. Next up we have the demon boss. Now the demon boss arrives at level 19, and honestly this one is the first push in, makes it a little bit more difficult. Now this boss has a lot of health, and now the more you progress you unlock these bosses and they just keep getting more and more health. Now this demon boss is not only very chunky and actually can take a lot of damage, but he will also spawn constantly flaming skulls that will attack you. Next up we have the Slime King. Now the Slime King is not that bad. He will just constantly be jumping at you. He will try to land on top of you and do some massive damage. Now these guys have a big range, so you can actually expect a lot of damage. But if you can just burst them down, they aren't that bad. Next up we have the Skeleton King, which I personally still find a pain because he has a lot of health. He has a lot more than all the other ones before him and after him, but he also adds a lot of skeletons to the party. Next up we have the Skeleton King. Now the Skeleton King is actually, I still find him one of the most annoying bosses because he has a lot of health and you really need to burst him down, and you need a lot of damage for that because additionally he also spawns a lot of skeletons. Now I will give you a few tips and tricks on how to handle those, but he takes a lot of damage, and that really slows you down because those 2 minutes and a half they are the real challenge. Not survival, just getting all those kills done in 2.5 minutes. But before we go into the tips and tricks, let's talk about the final one, and this one is going to be the most chaotic one the first time you encounter, and that is the Beat King, or well, I call him the Beat King, the Beat Boss. And now these spawn multiple at the same time, and well, they just make the game in a bullet hell game. They spawn massive numbers of bullets, they will be constantly firing at you, and honestly, they are, you know, one of the biggest challenges for a good reason. Now let's go into the tips. Now the tips is basically waiting till end game, because the better your weapons, the easier it gets. There's no way around that. I tried at the multiple stages of my gear, and honestly, at the demon level, you don't really need to enter the void. It wasn't until I got the Void Crystal, which is the third best weapons for Void Crystal, and then I got really a chance to get to level 20. But with Nuclear, level 30 is much easier. Now, except for waiting upgrades and, you know, just unlocking all pieces of gear and upgrading, including everything, for example, the Nuclear boots, which actually just increase your move speed, which is nice, but also the increased chance to dodge helps out a lot. Now, there is one tip that I keep reading everywhere, and I'm still not sure if I completely agree. Now, we are pretty much learned through the entire game that you should fight with your sword, and your sword is very powerful. But I see one tip that keeps coming back, and that is to use your Meteor Rod. Now, this is the upgraded Fire Rod, and it is very strong, I'm not gonna deny it. But honestly, I prefer to fight with a sword, but the Meteor Rod, I understand it, because with the Meteor Rod, and let me just show you inside the level, you can destroy a lot of monsters from afar, and it just makes you, you know, it makes you a lot mobiler. It just, you don't really need to run around like a madman, but honestly, I prefer the madman style. And now later in the levels, when you are fighting like against a few hundred mobs at once, then you don't really always know where your character is, and then just being able to attack with your sword is a little bit difficult. I'm not gonna lie about that, but honestly, I don't mind using the sword. But if maybe for your very first playthrough, you should use the Fire Rod. Now, I don't know if you've seen, but the Fire Rod is also upgradable with Spirit Orbs, but not as much as the sword. Now, Spirit Orbs are massive help. You need as many hearts as you can get, you need as much energy as you can get, and you need as much base attack damage as you can get. Now, as you can see, at this point, my Nuclear Sword has 416.25 attack damage. And you know, the higher this is, the more damage you can do and more realistic it is to get to level 30 and higher. So honestly, farming some Spirit Orbs by completing sigil bosses really helps out a lot. And of course, you know, buying the lands and completing everything. So just to get your max number of Spirit Orbs, just to increase your stats, really helps out a lot. It's really something you should look into. But there are a few tips. Now, there are certain items that will help you out a lot. Now, for example, the Thunder Strike is something I really like to use, and because it actually just zaps all enemies that are close by, and it also is harvesting resources as you go. Next up, you also have, for example, a Dragon Filter that will let you shoot fireballs and dodge attacks even better. And then you have the Mandragora potion that causes your attacks to poison anything they hit. What also helps is the Demon Scroll that I don't have on me right now, but the future me will place that on the screen right now, and that will also help you do a lot more damage when the need arises. So it pretty much just helps you shotgun your way through some bosses. But the biggest help that nobody can deny is these guys, the droids. Now the droids, they play a massive role in this game. They really help out a lot. So what they actually just do is they do not only destroy resources and collect them for you, but they also defend you, they help you, and they are a big help, especially dealing with these small monsters. They can as you can see, I'm walking through here and I don't even have to attack. I am fighting my way with my fire rod, but I haven't used it just yet, and I'm just going through this place. Now they are collecting resources for me, which is very easy. I don't even need to look at it, and they are just easily destroying the small mobs. So that way, when the big bosses arrive, you don't even need to look at those guys. Just focus yourself on the big boys, on the big bosses. Just nuke those down and let them worry about the little ones, and they will even help you with the big ones. So they are a massive help. The more you can get, the better. They are just, you know, honestly, I don't really want to play the Void without them because they're just so useful. Now, as you can see, when not all monsters are killed, then you can see a little white arrow above your character. Now, in the later levels, that's not really going to help that much. But if you have still some mobs to kill, this one will always lead you to a mob that you still need to kill. So that is just a little trick if you haven't noticed it just yet. It's just really useful because at certain moments you can really just sometimes not find that one monster you still need, and you know, losing a level because of that, it really sucks. Now the movement through the areas, honestly, that is just very logical. Just move in a circle through the procedurally generated maps and just try to cover as much ground as possible as you're fighting the enemies. Guys, that is basically it. Forager is basically a game on you know, upgrading everything, your buildings and your stats yourself, and then you can just use these very few items that you have at your disposal for these kinds of fights, and yeah, you can just use those to your benefit. But mainly the biggest help is upgrading your weapons, completing stuff so you can get some spirit orbs to upgrade your gear, your tank damage, your health, and your energy, and then using those potions that I mentioned earlier and droids, which are a massive help, and just nuke your way through the game. And honestly, level 30 isn't that hard once you use these tips. I found them out the hard way, and I really want to help you out so you don't really need to struggle or be frustrated. But guys, with these tips you can easily get to level 30. So guys, those are my tips for the Void in Forager. I really hope you found this useful. Let me know what you think. If you have any problems, you can always leave them in the comments down below. And if you're an expert, if you're a veteran, just leave your tips that I missed also in the comments down below. Guys, I want to thank you for watching, and until next time, see ya.